The Adventures of Tom Sawyer by Mark Twain. Longman Simplified English Series. Read by Pichitchai Nopagao. Chapter 3. Joys and Sorrows. Tom stood before Aunt Polly. The soft summer air, the restful quiet, the scent of the flowers, and the sleepy murmur of the bees had their effect, and she was nodding in her armchair. Her spectacles were up on her grey head for safety. She thought that Tom had deserted long ago, and she wondered to see him place himself in her power again in this bold way. "May I go out and play now, auntie?" he said. "What, already? How much have you done?" "It's all done, auntie." "Tom, don't lie to me. I hate lies." "I'm not lying, auntie. It is all done." Auntie Polly could hardly believe this, and went out to see for herself. She would have been content to find a quarter of Tom's statement true, when she found the entire fence whitewashed, and not only whitewashed but carefully coated and recoated. She gasped with astonishment. "Well, I never! I must say you can work when you try, Tom. But it's seldom that you do try. Well, run along and play." She was so astonished at Tom's performance that she took it to the cupboard and picked out the finest apple for him. He danced out in the garden and sowed seed. In a moment the air was full of lumps of earth. They flew round Sid's ears, and before Aunt Polly could come to the rescue 6 or 7 had hit him and Tom was over the fence and gone. There was a gate, but generally he was too short of time to make use of it. He was satisfied, since he had punished Sid for calling attention to the black thread and getting him into trouble. As he was passing the house where Jeff Thrasher lived, he saw a new girl in the garden. She was a lovely little blue-eyed angel, with 2 long tails of yellow hair. At once, a girl called Amy Lawrence vanished completely out of Tom's heart. He worshipped this new angel till he saw that she had discovered him. Then he pretended that he did not know she was present, and began to act in all sorts of silly boyish ways in order to win her admiration. While he was in the midst of some dangerous tricks, he glanced aside and saw that the little girl was going towards the house. Tom came up to the fence and leaned on it, hoping that she would wait a little longer. Tom sighed as she put her foot on the doorstep, but his face lit up at once, for she threw a rose over the fence just before she disappeared. The boy ran round, picked up his treasure, and button it inside his coat next to his heart, or next to his stomach possibly, for he was not quite sure where the one began and the other ended. All through supper he was so gay that his aunt wondered why. She scolded him for throwing lumps of earth at Sid, but he did not seem to mind in the least. He tried to steal sugar under his aunt's very nose, and got a tap on his fingers with a spoon. "Aunt, you don't hit Sid when he takes sugar," he said. "Well, Sid doesn't worry me as you do. You would be always stealing sugar if I didn't watch you." Sid smiled in a self-satisfied way, and when the old lady went into the kitchen, he reached for the sugar basin, but his fingers slipped and the basin dropped and broke. Now it was Tom's turn to smile, but he controlled his tongue and kept silent. He said to himself that he would not say a word, even when his aunt came in, but would sit perfectly still till she asked who had broken the basin. Then he would tell, and it would be delightful to see that model boys get a good beating. He was so wild with joy that he could hardly keep still when the old lady came back and stood above the broken pieces. Looking angrily over her spectacles, he said to himself, "Now she's going to hit Sid," and the next instant he was flat on the floor. Her palm was uplifted to strike again, when Tom cried out, "Hi, why are you hitting me?" Sid broke it. Aunt Polly paused, puzzled, and Tom looked at her for healing pity. But when she had recovered from her surprise, she only said, Well, I'm sure you deserve it. No doubt you were in some mischief while I was in the kitchen." Longman. Then her conscience freaked her, and she longed to say something kind and loving, but she judged that it would be taken as a confession that she had been in the wrong, and discipline forbade that. So she kept silent and went about her housework with a troubled heart. Tom sat gloomily in a corner and nursed his sorrows. He knew through tearful eyes that she glanced tenderly at him now and again, asking for forgiveness, but he refused to take any notice. He imagined himself lying on his deathbed, and his aunt bending over him, begging for one little forgiving word, but he would turn his face to the wall and die without saying that word. Ah, how would she feel then? And he imagined himself brought home from the river, dead with his crow or wet, and his poor hands still forever, and his broken heart at rest. She would throw herself upon him, and her tears would fall like rain. She would pray God to give her back her boy, and promise she would never ill-treat him anymore. But he would lie there, cold and poor, and make no sign. Poor little sufferer, he was so affected by these visions that he had to keep on slowly. His eyes swam in tears, which overflowed and ran down from the end of his nose. He was enjoying his sorrow so much that any cheerfulness was unwelcome. When his consoled Mary danced in delight to be home again after a week's visit to the country. He got up and moved in clouds and darkness out at one door as she brought song and sunshine in at the other. His unhappy heart desired to be alone, and so he wandered far away from the places where boys usually met. A log raft on the river in with him. He sat down on its outer edge and gazed at the wide river, wishing that he could be drowned at once without suffering the usual pangs. Not long after, as Tom was undressing for bed, Sid woke up. He said nothing. He knew from the expression on Tom's face that it would be unwise to ask him any questions. Tom got into bed without saying his prayers, and Sid made a note of this bad behavior.